Luxembourg is a small state in the west of Europe, surrounded by Germany, France, and Belgium. The country is only 2,500 square kilometers in size, which is roughly equivalent to the area of Saarland. It also has only about 600,000 inhabitants, which raises the question of how the small country was able to maintain its independence despite its central location and the expansive great powers. The history of the country is strongly influenced by its large neighboring countries, which is why it has repeatedly been the plaything of foreign powers. The origins of Luxembourg can be traced back to the 10th century. As early as 963, the castle of Luxembourg, which was located on the central rock of today's capital, was mentioned. Around the year 1060, Conrad I then created the title of Count of Luxembourg, which began the long dynasty of the Luxembourgers. Luxembourg always played an important role in Europe, and it eventually became a duchy. It was not until the 15th century that the country fell to the Habsburgs, and later to the Spanish Habsburg line, which meant that it was ruled by the Spanish king along with Belgium and the Netherlands. However, since Spain was involved in many wars in the following centuries, Luxembourg was also always a contested territory between the great powers. It was repeatedly conquered by France, including during the Napoleonic Wars when the country was occupied by France until the end of Napoleon's reign. It was not until the Congress of Vienna, which was supposed to reorganize Europe, that Luxembourg was detached from France. However, it did not receive its full independence even further. In fact, the status of Luxembourg was determined in a very complex way. On the one hand, it was assigned to the Netherlands, whose ruler ruled it together with Belgium. On the other hand, the country also belonged to the German Confederation, which is why a part of it had to be ceded to Prussia and a Prussian garrison was stationed in Luxembourg. Luxembourg subsequently had to cede more and more land to the surrounding countries. For example, in the 1830s, when Belgium was able to fight for its independence from the Netherlands, Luxembourg was divided between Belgium and the Netherlands, losing a large part of its territory to Belgium. It did not gain its full independence until 1867, when the German Confederation was dissolved and Prussia no longer had the right to station its troops in Luxembourg. France, however, saw this as an opportunity to expand its power and offered the Dutch a purchase, which they accepted. However, neither the other German states nor the Luxembourgers themselves wanted this, which is why clarity had to be achieved in a conference in London. It was decided that Luxembourg should become a neutral and independent country, which would act as a buffer between the great powers. However, this only worked to a limited extent, as Luxembourg was invaded by Germany in both world wars. During World War I, Germany invaded France via Belgium and Luxembourg and occupied it until the end of the war. Also during World War II, Germany occupied the country as early as May 1940, and a very difficult time began for the country. The Grand Duchess fled into exile in London, the population was forced into military service, the Luxembourgish language was banned, and many Jewish inhabitants were deported to concentration camps. The country was not liberated until September 1944, which also marked the beginning of Luxembourg's rise. It was a founding member of the United Nations and NATO, and was one of the driving forces in the process of European unification. It was a founding member of the European Economic Community and later the EU, in which it took an active role. Many EU administrative offices are located in Luxembourg. The Schengen Agreement, which abolished border controls in the European Union, was signed in the Luxembourg municipality of Schengen. And several Luxembourg politicians assumed important posts within the EU. The most famous is probably Jean-Claude Juncker, who was president of the European Commission from 2014 to 2019. The ethical composition of the country is very diverse due to its history, and it is one of the countries with the highest percentage of foreigners. The main reasons for this are low taxation and good prospects on the labor market. Therefore, the percentage of foreigners in Luxembourg is 47%, with the largest minorities being the Portuguese with 15%, the French with 7%, the Italians with 4%, and the Germans with 3%. You may wonder why the Portuguese make up by far the largest percentage of foreigners. It all goes back to a recruitment agreement between the two countries, which greatly facilitated immigration from Portugal. In addition, many Germans and French only work in Luxembourg and therefore commute from their home countries. Although Luxembourg has its own language, Luxembourgish, which was initially considered a dialect of German but is now recognized as a lingua.